Right, hi guys. Welcome to the latest episode of Cricket Draft Insight. Hopefully this is working. Apologies for the lighting situation, but my blinds are broken. But it is nice to have some sun. Right, just going to react to the provisional values. So let's just have a stroll through the provisional values on Medium, and give an inkling as to my squad. Anybody who's followed me for any length of time will probably have a very good idea what my squad will be. Right. So Caleb Jewell up there, 7.7 million. He's having a bit of a shocker in Australia. I was very keen on him at the start of last season. I'm having a bit of a wobble in terms of my affection for him, but I still think in Division 2 he will come good. He'll score quick runs. I still think he's probably a tad expensive, because one thing I'm going to talk about here is I do think there are some very cheap batters. When I first looked at the provisional prices, I thought it was pretty tough. But I do think there are a few batters actually that are just they should be a bit higher, because you could have a perfectly legitimate batting lineup, all of which are less than 6 million. But as we go through, we'll have a look. But yeah, Jewell is currently in the mix for me. So Zach Chappell listed as a bowler. Matthew Montgomery is one who interests me because he can bowl a bit too. I really like him in white ball cricket. And Ben Aitchison actually is a very under the radar player. Got some good stats if he's fit. Got himself back in the mix last season. So 6 million if you wanted somebody a bit different. And Irene Donald, obviously, I'm a big fan, but I'm unlikely to be able to get him in my county championship team, because he did score 50 opening the batting in the last innings of last season. But I'm not sure Reese or somebody wasn't available either, so they got to make some changes. And then some of these cheaper players for Derbyshire. Just see if I can do this a bit quicker. Oh, what's happening? Durham. So Durham and Somerset are two teams that I often struggle to want any of their players in my team. David Beddingham is a popular one, of course, if he's playing regularly. Same for Matthew Potts if he's playing regularly. Kemar Roach, we know, will be popular. Look, Ollie Robinson, wicketkeeper, but 7.9 million. There's a lot of wicket-keeping options. I don't think Robinson outweighs others. Gay, I know, is one that people are keen on. I like Graham Clark, but does he start? Shafi-coloured Ghaffari. Now, there's no Kookaburra ball. Maybe early season, no. But if they did want a spinner, he could be a shrewd one. I'd love to see James Minto get a bit of game time. There are quite a lot of bowlers here, and there are a few players, probably some of these Durham bowlers, and a few other players who interest me, like Harry Darley at Worcestershire, James Hayes at Nottinghamshire, who did play a bit of List A cricket last season. Big seasons. Harry Duke is the other one. Spoken about him a bit and maybe come back to. They've got to come up with something this season when they're out of contract at the end of this season. Essex, so Harmer, he's maybe not quite the GOAT anymore. Cook, if he's fit, gets playing again. I'd love to see him get another crack at Test cricket, at least get another test. Mulder will be popular. Jamie Porter for me is now my main bowler, ahead of Cook, ahead of Code. Jamie Porter. I remember last year, Jamie Porter and Ben Code both got rested in the same week, and it wasn't that far into the season, and it was both a week before they didn't have a game or something. Why are you being rested? Walter as a batter, of course, is one that's come up. Dan Lawrence being the big other controversial one. So I am back to Pepper being my wicketkeeper at 6.7 million. That's fantastic value for a guy who scores very quickly. At one point, I was going to go for the whole one player per team, because I was struggling to make some tough decisions. But at the moment, I'm just kind of gone back to instinctive. And I do have at least two teams from which I've got two players. Charlie Allison is one. So I'll say it now. He averaged north 40 last year with 300s. And he had a fantastic run across formats where he didn't get dismissed in single figures. Given Kellaway and Tribe have gone up. Charlie Allison, 5.1 million. I think Wharton's 5.5, and he's had a couple of good seasons. And Sol Budinger kind of clicked in red ball cricket last year, 5.7 scores quickly. Those three players for me, Allison, Wharton and Budinger, is a perfectly legitimate batting lineup. It cost you barely £16 million. When I speak to people, they want it tougher. I would be upping those players a bit. Ben Allison at Worcestershire on the bowling front is also a player I would probably up the tempo. Big season for Robin Das if he gets any opportunities, mainly looking at the One Day Cup. Right, so Glamorgan have signed Nathan McAndrew, who people like, and actually £7.6 million for the most expensive player at Glamorgan. And I tell you what, he's actually listed as a bowler. Has that been the case before? Because he can bat. Oh, do you know? Suddenly he becomes of interest. Kieran Carlson for me, 7.2 million. I'm sorry, I'm an absolute broken record with him, but he's averaged 45, 14, 45 the last 3 years, right? He is the captain. Bat at 4, maybe 5. I don't know if he's gone 4. Okay, but they are going into Division 1. That's the caveat. But he does score 50-plus score, like every 3 innings, and he has a decent strike rate. And whenever I don't pick Kieran Carlson, he makes me pay. Ben Kellaway, so all the way up to 6.4, but I think I will have him. Okay. Another one, I didn't have him in the very start of last season, but I had him in the One Day Cup a few years ago. There was a bit of uncertainty about how Glamorgan were going to balance the side and wanting 2 spinners, and because they had Bashir was an off spinner. But I am going to start Kellaway because I think he will score quick runs and I think he will take like cheap wickets at the end. So yeah, Tribe, of course, people are going to be keen on 6.2. I think he'd be opening. Andy Gorvin, really like him, 5.9 million. But you know, when Ned Leonard got a few games last season, actually, I thought he looked quite good. Eddie Byram is one people used to like, but there's tough decisions here. Spoke about Zain Hassan if he does open the batting and bowls a bit. People got to miss out. And I mean, goodness me, when you come to some of these teams like Yorkshire, who else was I thinking about earlier? Like some Middlesex as bowlers, like some very good players are going to have to miss out, but they're going to be rotated each week, aren't they? So like when we're picking our teams, we're thinking about week 1, but like you have got to be ready for the rotation, particularly amongst the bowlers, you know, in those, well, any week really. Glamorgan, right. I am extremely excited by Gabe Bell. I signed O'Neill at the start of last year. Quite a few people were aware of O'Neill. Good example of knowledge cricket draft because he's not an international player, okay? And even before last season, he never played in England or anything, and he was in 7 or 8% of teams from the get-go. Excellent record with the ball, can bat. Now, the thing about O'Neill is we don't think he's going to be around for week 1, which is the same for players like Mitch Perry and stuff. Come to him. Is he listed as an all-rounder? Liam Scott playing a couple of games, do well. But anyway, Bell, I'm expecting to do well. That said, Will Williams, if he's now going to play regular, having not done so last season or so at Lancashire, and if Craig Miles is fit, Craig Miles has 360 first-class wickets, and he's got about 5 half-centuries, and he's been anonymous for the last year or two. If he is fit and he plays 5.7 million, like he really could be a heck of a pick. Matt Taylor being the other bowler to throw in the equation there, left armour, but doesn't have so he's variety, which I like, but he doesn't have a great first class record. And of course, they had Van Buren to bowl left arm spin, and he took more wickets than he's done for a long time last season. Because at one point, you weren't really justifying all rounder status. He did last year. Miles Hammond is one I've had. I think he's missing out because I've been set on Ali Orr, but I'm just having a bit of a wobble on Ali Orr. But it's one of those, I've said it so loudly. If I now leave him out and don't pick him, oh dear. Right, here we are, Hampshire. Dawson Seals, people be keen on. Layman, 7.1 million, but so he never really, recent years he batted 5. So if he did go to 4, is he going to be okay? If he bats at 5, do you want a batter at 5? He just dried up slightly in Australia, but I think he's all right. He's done really well the last few years. Interesting one. Ali Orr, as I say, did well in the One Day Cup last year. I think he's primed to perform. If they back him, I think he can score quickly, hit 6s. But then Middleton, I'm not being convinced by when I've seen before, but I thought he improved a bit last year. I don't. Does Albert? I think Orr should be starting, but we'll see. I would like to see John Turner bounce back this season, get fit and play. I mean, if Middleton is playing 5.8 million, I don't think he's going to get any strike rate bonuses. Sonny Baker, but of course, if he's now on some sort of England contract, and again, I hope he gets to play for England again because he had 2 very expensive games, didn't he? And if Albert's in there 5 million, there is an argument that Ben Mays should be listed as a wicket keeper. He did keep wicket in the One Day Cup, didn't he? And I don't think they have anybody else listed as a wicket keeper. Though of course Albert and Orr even could be keeping wicket, but I mean that's just if Ben Brown isn't playing. On the subject of wicket keepers, but we'll wait till we come to Somerset, if I remember. Keith Dudgeon was in the wickets today, I think. 7.4 million. Right. There's a heck of a bowler bottleneck here. Actually, sorry, there's a batting bottleneck. Well, there's just a bottleneck in general. If Crawley's playing, Dawkins could have been a shrewd signing, but he's not. They got Compton, Bell, Drummond, Muyeye, North East, right? The specialist batters. And then on the bowling front, I'm not being ignorant, am I? Mutusami, Sturman, and Dudgeon can't all play, can they? So even if you want Dudgeon, if Mutusami, he's a spinner but he bats, well, are these two going to be rotated then? So Dudgeon, as long as you can get to your phone and you're ready, and this is what I said last year. I had 1 paid transfer, right? This is why I don't pick international players, like players who are getting called into England team, because even when I had the week where Code and Porter wasn't playing, I somehow managed to get around it. And then I had 1 week after the T20 blast where I got carried away and I signed an extra spinner, and it was just absolutely ridiculous. I did finish 50th, and I only made 1 penalty transfer, right? If you're picking any of these 3 players, they can't all play, can they? So Dudgeon and Sturman presumably get rotated. Matt Milnes, a good one. But again, not a cat in hell's chance is he going to play every game, is he? Harry Finch, perfectly fine wicket-keeping option. And then some of these younger all-rounder lads maybe come into the equation a bit later. Tom Rogers coming to T20 blast. I went a bit off him. Well, we didn't have a big bash game, did we? But we'll see about Tom Rogers. Right, so James Anderson. People are going to be keen on James Anderson to say he's captain. But I say it again, I do not believe for 1 second he's going to play every game. Okay? Marcus Harris never lets you down at domestic level. Even if he bats at 4 because we have Jennings. What happened last season? Because Harris wasn't opening. Was it Wells? And then did Wells, but then Wells went back into the middle order, didn't he? A batter. I don't know how much his bowling is value in first class. Hartley is listed as a bowler. Mitch Perry's down as a bowler. He can bat a bit. Few new signings, obviously. Balderson, maybe doesn't get the attention in amongst all the all-rounders. Did well for me in the One Day Cup last year. This screen's a bit weird because it's like things are duplicated or whatever. Matty Hurst is only 6 million. Can't argue with that. I like him. He's often ended up being on my bench because I have Pepper. And look, people even like Blabberwick, Aspinwall, decent little bowler, but I mean, they're not going to get the red ball opportunities, are they? Arav Shetty, I thought looked all right, but some of these players, hopefully they maybe get a chance to break through. Maybe they get T20 blast, but a lot of these players, once you get down here, we're thinking head to the One Day Cup, aren't we? Hanscom, I mean, again, never let you down. Probably wouldn't keep wicket. And actually, that's an interesting question about Leicestershire. Johnny Tattersall's gone, but Ben Cox, he keeps wicket well, scores runs quickly. Even if he don't quite go on to get hundreds, he has scored a lot of 30s, 40s, and a few 50s. I've actually quite liked Ben Cox the last few years. Pleased to see, hope to see Tattersall get in there. But Eskenazi, when it was very tight, if everybody's available, like their team is very tight and they have all these all-rounders. Ben Green, of course, was gone there because I thought Alex Green could be a very shrewd one. But they've got, Hull was a left arm at competition, but I say it like Buddinger's 5.6 million. And that's a bit low to me. Higgins, 8.4. Okay, last couple of games last season cost me a bit because he got a couple of ducks. And he didn't seem like he fired, but he scored 100 and he still took 40 wickets. I'm picking Ryan Higgins, okay? A lot of people keen on loose deploy. Max Holden, still only 6.6. Can't argue with him, pretty consistent in recent years. Joe Cracknell, I'm leaning towards maybe having on my bench. Particularly because I had slight doubt about my other batter. And then just, if I couldn't get to my phone and the batter didn't play. I think Cracknell will start. He did finish last year. great second 11 run. Well, a few players who had to really knock the door down in second 11 cricket, or Cracknell, even Asa Tribe at the start of last season. Cracknell can score quickly, leaves Davis out of the equation, I think. And then I said, so Noah Cornwell, I know a lot of people are keen on Faulkner. I'm not sure how he gets in, and if he does play, I'm not sure he does. Like, he probably might be comparable to Ethan Brooks in terms of his bowling, but obviously he's very good with the bat. Right, Sebastian Morgan should be an all-rounder in my opinion. He scored 97 in the last innings of last season, and he scored 61 in his only List A innings. Cornwell and Morgan are very appealable to me, though they might miss out initially. If you have Higgins in the top 6, Gohar and Roland Jones are down the order. You've then got Helm and Brooks. You've also got Holman, who I think finished last season strongly. Might have been batting higher up. And what did I say? Cornwell and Morgan to fight it out. But if Cornwell and Morgan play, I like, for a team, I like Cornwell because he's left armour. From a cricket draft perspective, if Morgan plays and he's listed as a bowler, oh, very good. And eligible to play for Spain, of course. Right, Chahal. I don't know off the top of my head, Chahal is that later in the season. They got McSweeney and Conway, and then I think Chahal comes. I was just wondering earlier, I'm not sure if Chahal around from the One Day Cup. Liam Guthrie's all right, peaks and troughs. Keogh, I must have gone past safe. What's happened here? Sorry, I think it's just having a little moment because Safe Sabe is there, 7.2. So I'll have Safe Sabe and Ethan Brooks. And yes, you're going to say, oh, they don't quite bowl enough. I'm not expecting Safe Sabe to do as well as he did last year, but I would like to point out I did have Safe Sabe from the start last year. Okay. Hopefully he does well again, scores quick runs, chips in with the ball. I love Conway. Really love Harry Conway. I like his style. I just in amongst the sea of bowling. Well, I could still pick him if even Code doesn't play week 1. I think he does play week 1. But goodness me, Yorkshire are going to have to leave some players out. Broad would be a very popular one. Harrison, of course, take a lot of catches. Where does he bat? Vasconcelos, 6.1 million. I think he didn't have great figures, but he's budgetish, isn't he? I like Louis Kimber, but I don't know how he gets in there. I actually wonder if James Sale should be a batter because he didn't bowl too much last year, and I don't really see how he gets. Well, I don't see how he gets a bowl. Dom Leach, I'd just throw him in. In my mind, there's just a lot of bowlers. Darley, who did I say? Hayes, Leach. I was ashamed for Dom Leach because he was having a tough time last year, and then he had a really good game, I thought, and then he got taken out. Like, he's out of contract. He needs to come up with something. He needs some performances. Does Adi Sharma start? Oh, I'll tell you, Van der Merwe. There you go. There's an absolute bargain. 4.2 million. He starts, and he is good enough. Okay, and I think he does bowl a bit too. Yeah, I'd be in a different scenario. I'd be very keen on Van der Merwe. Fergus O'Neill. We think, because Victoria in the Sheffield Shield final is potentially 5 days, goes to March the 30th. County Championship starts April 3rd, right? So O'Neill is a big one who basically, quite honestly, I'm hoping isn't available because it kind of eases a decision for me at least week 1. And then maybe say Code got rested, I could bring O'Neill in. Muhammad Ali, I was watching him today. He fell over and he hurt his finger, but he seemed to get up and be all right. Pennington, he's sort of fallen down, a bit unfortunate, isn't he? We didn't test squad. But actually, in terms of watching somebody play, well, he's looked as good a bowler as I've seen, and I don't think I'm the only person who thinks that. If he's fit, if he's playing, Pennington, Brett Hutton come back. You can't argue with Brett Hutton at 7.2 million, but he did have some injuries. Patterson White had a real renaissance last season. Good to see. And I tell you what, another batter, Ben Slater, 6.7 million. Freddie McCann, 5.6 million, and might pick up some cheeky wickets. Really good to see Joe Pockington last season because he was knocking the door down for Yorkshire. And got himself in at Nottinghamshire. Ben Martindale's another one. You just hope he gets a chance, don't you? And I still like Sam Cicheran. He didn't quite get going in the first team last season. He got up and running. I'm really interested in the moment about a lot of players who got released and how difficult it is to get back in. I think Sam King was hard done by. I don't really know anything about Travis Holland, and he might be very good. But it's just like Cicheran who served King. King was a good player. And there just comes a point where you let these players go. And then, but like, is Travis Holland going to get a chance? But obviously, you've got to have enough players for second 11 as well, aren't you? I'm really interested to see the second 11 stuff and see if there's one or two players there who I just think from the One Day Cup could get a gig. Tom Morse, so he's just white balling now. Craig Overton, all-rounder. Has that always been the case? I think maybe it has in recent years. Miguel Pretorius. Somebody was talking about Pretorius and was it Thomas being bowlers? Miguel Pretorius, he averages like 27. He's got 116 half centuries. Does not let you down. I've often wondered, like Pretorius, but just in this sea of all-rounders, I can't get him in. And Jack Leach, 7.9 million. Again, will not let you down. I think, I don't know if Kohler Cadmor's available, because he actually can score quite quickly. And Lammonby, who picked up some wickets, maybe was it in the One Day Cup, and he scored some runs last year. In my early cricket draft days, I had him, and I still like him. I still think he's a good fielder. I'm very interested in this Australian thing about having a specialist fielder, because I'm looking at people like Ethan Brooks and Tom Lammonby, but you're not going to be signed to beat fielder, are you, as an overseas player? But Lammonby is one who kind of missed the boat on the like franchise circuit, didn't he? Really interested in Josh Shaw at the moment, but in white ball cricket, not in red ball cricket. But he might play and do well, and that'll be interesting, won't it? 6.1 million. I would love to see Will Smeed. I would love a wild card selection of Will Smeed, but I mean, based on the batters I've got, I wouldn't anticipate being able to pick him. I would love to see him play red ball, even though he didn't do very well in the England Lions. Right, Thomas Rue. Does Thomas Rue play? And he sat on the bench in the South Africa T20, and he's been signed for the 100. Now, he's obviously exceptionally good, but call me old-fashioned. If we don't play in the 100, well, is he better being... I mean, it's the same adage for anybody, isn't it? He's better playing the One Day Cup. Is he going to start in the County Championship? I think the vibe is yes. Maybe he does. So, interesting to see. A lot of people are going to like him. Just on the subject. So, when we get to the One Day Cup, Somerset don't have a wicket-keeper, okay? They do not have a wicket-keeper at all. So, something has to happen. There's a lad in the academy who doesn't seem to have scored many runs last year. And then what? We have to sign someone. So, we'll see, won't we? A bit raw and a bit wild, but what I saw JT Langridge, I do like him. Very exciting. And Finn Hill's a bit good, but he is probably just a One Day Cup player. But Somerset, like Surrey, they tend to get hit the hardest, and they do have to stockpile. But I mean, we're talking about the County Championship here, right? Ollie Pope, big one, because again, early days of cricket draft, people like you pick Pope, and if you're at home, you certainly pick Pope. Well, he's fallen out of the England 11. I don't see how he's immediately getting back in. I still think he can play for England. Okay, I saw somebody scoffing at him getting a T20 gig the other day. I actually think he's a very good T20 player. I think it's a bit weird. He hasn't actually had the opportunity to bat, say, 4 in one day internationals, but obviously we have Root around, Brook and what have you. I think Ollie Pope could have done a very good job for England in one day internationals. And actually his test record, okay, he didn't have a great time in Australia, but like he's not Mark Ramprakash, is it? He has actually scored quite a lot of hundreds, okay. But he's not in the equation at the moment, fair enough. But he is still a good cricketer who could score runs. Even for England in certain situations. So Lawrence is a batter. Well, I mean, I disagree with that. I was slightly wrong. He's actually out-bowled James Coles the last 2 years. Safe save, Ethan Brooks. Should be an all-rounder. I mean, Will Jacks. Who bowls more out Jacks and Lawrence if they're playing? Sibley, 7.5. Matt Fisher, good to see. I think it was a slow start, wasn't it, at Surrey? England is still interested. Tom Laws. I like Tom Laws. I actually think he's a very clever T20 bowler. He just keeps getting injured, though. He got injured because he can bat. He got injured in the Missed England Lions. Signed in the 100 again. But he's just a good little player. Ryan Patel. A lovely one, again, when we get to the One Day Cup. We're out of sync again with Somerset and Surrey. Oh, my goodness. And then Surrey, good old Cameron Steele. And some of these players. Oh, I mean, Ralphie Albert. Ollie Sykes been signed to the say the 100. Ralphie Albert. I mean, he could play. He could play because he can bat, and then he's a left arm spinner. He is left arm spinner, isn't he? He did well, obviously, in his opportunities last season. Very exciting, and Jimmy White very proud, of course. Actually, it could be costly for Youssef Majid. But given the amount of players who've gone to the 100, some of these lads down the bottom here might get a chance in the one-day cup. Nathan Barnwell is one. I've said before, anybody with abysmal statistics, I just desperately want them to do better. Interested to see how he goes. Laurie Evans. I know I'm digressing here when I'm supposed to be talking about County Championship prices. I like Laurie Evans, right? But he hasn't been great for a while. He didn't score any runs for Perth Scorchers. I don't think I checked. He got 150 in the Blast last year. I'm not sure if he played in between. Yet he's still been signed to the PSL, and I think it was at 85,000 for the 100. And it's just what I say sometimes about some of these players just getting signed because they're part of the franchise furniture. When if teams just like we do looked beyond and tried to find some other players. On that note, though, there were some. I thought I got slightly drawn into the 100 auction and did see people like Ethan Brooks getting signed. There's 1 or 2 others off the top of my head. Good to see some of these young players getting signed. The lad I mentioned from Pakistan the other day got signed in the PSL. It's good to see, not just the obvious regulars. Okay, so I'm very tempted by Daniel Hughes, given that I'm having a wobble on Alior or even Caleb Jewell. But Hughes and Jewell are effectively the same player, and Hughes plays in Division 1. And Jewell, even though I could say Jewell is not in form, how do you measure Daniel Hughes' form? Really interesting, because like Harry Conway, he does not have a state contract. And he did his sort of usual in the Big Bash, where I think he had 1 good score. He plays a few. He gets caught on the leg side, like behind the wicket. He plays that shot, and it's like his strength and his weakness. I was going to say something else about him. What was I going to say? I was just going to mention Curtis Patterson, though, whilst I'm there. Like, goodness me, teams must be interested in Curtis Patterson, and he must be in the Australian team. I just wonder if he's going to be so unfortunate that because Australia don't have a test for a while, he can't get in. So Coles is an interesting one. So he's obviously not an England contracted player now, so I don't see why he wouldn't necessarily play every game. But then, do you remember last year, England asked for Sam Cook not to play? I just wonder if Coles is one where he might be asked to not play, because if he's going to come in across formats, but then are they going to leave Dawson? Are they going to put Dawson in tests? Are they going to move to Coles or in some of the formats? And then once he becomes an England player, well, then you have no interest to me. But Coles is normally one in the sea of all-rounders. I can't fit him in anyway. Carson's still pretty decent, and obviously becomes more decent if Coles does disappear. Off spinner, can bat. He is listed as an all-rounder, but he can bat. Though, of course, is Jack Leaning going to bowl a bit? Tom Price, I'm interested. He's gone from Gloucestershire, because Gloucestershire lost 6 right-arm bowling options. Tom Price has gone to Sussex, and now we're hearing next year you think Sussex is going to lose a load of players because they can't afford them, And they let some good players go last year. I'm really interested to let Archie Lenham go when his family seemed quite tied into Sussex. He took a 5-wicket haul in his last game. Alex Russell, who's not playing in Zimbabwe this year, they seem to move away from, well, certainly English overseas players. He played a couple of second 11 games. Really interested to see if he gets in or gets in come the one-day cup. But then you might say, well, why didn't they keep Lenham? I guess the period between. But interesting to watch. Poor old Ollie Carter. I said before, I love John Simpson, but I think Carter's been a bit hard done by. And Sean Hunt is a very good bowler. And he came in and he did what a few of us knew he could do last year, take some wickets. But then, of course, he got injured. Tom Alsop. Okay, his numbers weren't as good last year. 5.9 million. I still think he's generally hard done by on his price front. Daniel Ibrahim, Troy Henry, exciting little player. Charlie Tare, who I think scored, was it 100 in the... Maybe that was in the One Day Cup. Not entirely sure if George Thomas ever gets a go. Right, Chris Wokes, people are going to be very, excuse me, very keen on. Ed Barnard. I'm going to omit Barnard so that I can do other stuff. Obviously, as it stands, we don't think he'll be around from the One Day Cup, which is interesting because he's been signed in the 100. Sam Hain, who's had some just odd injuries and stuff, hasn't he? Unavailability, but if he's available. Ethan Bamber. Now, in a sea of bowlers, I had Bamber a few years ago. I can't get Bamber in. Was it last year he scored 100? Ethan Bamber, £7.1 million. Okay, you can't argue with that. And I'm almost at one point was very tempted by Jordan Thompson. I don't think I'm quite going to go down that route. It's obviously hugely frustrating that he has left Yorkshire. This really doesn't sit well with me. I think he joined Birmingham Phoenix in the 100, which I think is officially not supposed to mean anything, is it? But interesting, he gone to Warwickshire and then I might be wrong. I think he was signed by Birmingham Phoenix. Rob Yates, 6.9 million. I was going to say catches because he does take a lot of catches and he obviously bowls a bit, even if we don't have the Kookaburra. Interesting, nobody signed Rocky Gioli. Be interesting to see if he gets signed by anybody. Gilchrist moved again, Warwickshire, but I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a bowling bottleneck here as well. Mousley as a batter is interesting, and then maybe don't bowl much in the first class. Right, Michael Booth, 5.5 million. There you go. He could be exciting. Zen Malik, unfortunate to get in last year and then kind of drop out. 4.6, good player. Maybe we wait till the One Day Cup, but then we don't know if did they lose that many players. Right, Adam Sylvester. I don't know if Adam Sylvester is still at Warwickshire. It's one of those, seems a bit unclear. I actually thought he had two very, very good games last year, coming into the equation with pretty poor record, and then had a very expensive game. If he's still around, I'd like to see him get more opportunities. I'd like to see Tazim Ali get some opportunities across the formats. Richard Gleeson, just by the way, older one, has actually been doing very well, it has to be said, around the world. Right, Bayaswana Powell is one of those. I'd love him. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen for me. Matthew Waite, you can't go wrong with Matthew Waite, but as I've said, you can't pick them all rounders. Tom Taylor's a bowler, hugely popular selection. Roderick, wicketkeeper, did sort of stop opening last season. Ben Allison, 6.1, can't argue with that. Been a solid player since moving to Worcestershire. At the moment, I think I will have Brooks, and I said before, Zabe and Brooks, you're like, okay, maybe they don't bowl enough. But look, most outfield catches, if he and Zabe score runs, they score them quickly. I think he does get in there, Brooks, maybe even as high as 5. Although, actually, there's a few players to accommodate here, which we'll come to. Kashif Ali. But I like Brooks. And then I'll have a couple of other all-rounders that hopefully take some wickets, or Higgins, Kellaway. So Kashif Ali, who is not being as spectacularly consistent as you would like since the year or two ago when he scored hundreds in the first game of the season, and a lot of people had him on the bench, and then there were 2 games rained off, and he came in. I mentioned Harry Darley, which I know seems a bit random. It's very hard to see how he gets in the team with all these right-arm bowling all-rounders when you think that Jack Home didn't get much of a look in last season. Right, Rehan Edibalaf finished last season in the team. He opened the batting, he scored 60-odd, he got run out, which was annoying. I think he scored 43, 0 and 67. So I don't see why he doesn't start. But of course, last season we had Asa Tribe finish the season with 250s and he didn't start. Daniel Latigan presumably starts 2, which is why I think like Hose and Jones miss out. I mean, Edibalaf and Latigan. What I'm talking about, some of these batters I mentioned, Wharton, Budinger, Allison, too cheap. Your Latigan, Edibalaf, Dawkins are absolutely fine price. And then it's like, well, if they play, they could turn out to be stunners, you know? Oh, I saw Osama Mir bowled today. I don't think Hisham Khan needs to be there. He's not at Worcestershire anymore. Osama Mir took 4 wickets today. And I think he took a 5-wicket haul in the last game. This is interesting. I assume he plays as a Pakistan player because there's talk, is it next season he'll be an English player? So, okay. Yorkshire. Okay, I know I've said this a few times and it's not confirmed at all, but I just saw some speculation that Bairstow was maybe going to the IPL. But as it stands, he's not, so fine. But if he did go to the IPL, well, I mean, he's not gone to PSL. Why wouldn't he have gone to the PSL if he won't go to the IPL? Okay, well, you want to play for Yorkshire, great. But if he did disappear, I just think Harry Duke becomes one of the best possible signings ever. Calm down, Paul. Right, Jai Richardson, Ben Code. Right, even if you had right, I don't even know the batting order. Well, if Bairstow's there, right? So if you have Live and Bean and say Whiteman, I was thinking Wharton, Whiteman 4. Whiteman's open, he's batted at 3. Say Whiteman 4. Right. Bairstow. You've got a Revis, Hill, Bess. The Best deserves to play regardless. Hill, Revis. White, Van Beek. Where is what? Van Beek. Code Richardson. Like I was looking at it, somebody has to miss out. Mate, I mean, is that 11? I've just said. Like it's tight. And even as somebody pointed out, like if Revis plays, does he get to bowl enough? But then, I'm talking about picking books and whatever. Technically, I do think there's a couple of other lads. Taylor and Singh, don't they have like full contracts? But a lot of these lads, you're waiting for the one-day cup. I hope Akhtar gets a go. Some of these could come in sooner. The T20 Blast, I don't see why not. One or two of them. Yorkshire have a lot of players. You play to win, you pick the best players. But there's a few lads here. Vigadia got to a point where I would just like to see him actually get a bit of a go, and find out whether they're good enough. And actually, that's taken us all the way to the end, hasn't it? Yeah, so just a few thoughts on the players there. I've kind of told you my squad. I won't go back through it because I might do a actual squad announcement or selection or whatever when the game goes live, which hopefully isn't too long away. But there's lots of options. Definitely lots of cheap batters available. Spoiled for choice on the bowlers, almost as much as all-rounders. And actually, wicket keepers. There's so many ways you can go. So, yeah, what are we? 14th of March. We're getting there. Teams are playing sort of random, weird friendlies in various parts of the world, aren't they? And then we'll get some more proper-ish friendlies soon. And we'll be checking those scorecards. And then Friday, game starts. And hopefully we'll get a load of green discs. All right. Thank you very much for watching. The sun has gone down. And this is the end of this not live stream. How's that?